Today's Mark Teixeira report brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings, Windorama, and Anderson Windows, New York Community Bank, 19 Crimes Wine, and PC Richard and Son. Mark, Michael, Don, and Peter, how are you today?
A little upset, guys. We're 7 minutes late today. Come on.
I know. It was Gary Myers.
What's going on?
How much does the injury to Jordan Montgomery hurt?
Guys. You know what? I feel terrible for Jordan, obviously. But as we saw last year in the playoffs, I don't think Jordan Montgomery was getting October starts anyway. And it's just he's just not there in his development yet. He's got a very bright future. Obviously, the Tommy John is going to complicate things and push it back a little bit, but I still think he's one of those guys that they're going to look at. The Yankees are going to look at as an Andy Pettitte type in the future. But for this year's Yankees, I don't think it's a big deal because the team's probably going out trying to look for another starter anyway.
But do you need two? Like one to get you past the Red Sox and then that Verlander type that maybe you can lean on in the playoffs?
That's a great point, Don, but I don't think there's a Verlander type out there right now. I don't see Patrick Corbin getting traded. I don't see Madison Bumgarner getting traded. I think you're probably looking more towards the J.A. Happ, Cole Hamels type guys that are really good pitchers, but are probably third starters on this team right now.
Let me talk to you about Gary Sanchez. I look up at the board, or when I'm broadcasting the games at the stat sheet, and I can't believe he's hitting 200. Now, other big home run guys, you could see it. But this guy's a really good hitter. What's going on, Mark? What's going on with Gary Sanchez to hit 200?
Yeah, there's something going on in his head because, Gary, I want to say that Gary's plate discipline, while it's not perfect, has been better than this. I saw him swinging a pitch in the dirt last night that didn't even get to the plate. I mean, it bounced in front of the plate almost. And that's just not Gary Sanchez. So you got to think there's something going on in his head right now. He's really pressing. I think when you neutralize Gary Sanchez, it's because you execute your pitches. He's not a guy that's just going to be flailing up there wildly at every single pitch. And the reason that he has expanded a little bit more is as you press, you start trying to make things happen. We saw it a little bit with Didi. And he's good enough to hit balls over his head every now and then, or he's good enough to hit balls at his ankles every now and then. But because he wants it to happen so much, he's really expanding, and these good pitchers are taking advantage of that.
Do you think if he was a left fielder, he would be struggling? Do you think he's taking the rigors of catching to the plate?
It would be easier. And we know New York guys, if he was a catcher in Cincinnati or, Texas or somewhere where every single pass ball or every single wild pitch wasn't documented and written about, he would have an easier job. And I think it would be easier for him to hit. But, this guy is one of the best players on the best team in the Big Apple. And whether it's fair or not, he gets beat up from his defense a lot. To bring that in. I seem to be battling Don, and now Peter's joined in as well. The Mets have played very badly of late. They've lost 6 in a row, 7 of 8, 11 of their last 13, 15 of the last, or 13 of the last 16. But I say not even by a long shot, Mark, are they out of it. Should any Met fan give up on the season? Am I off base here? I mean, it's June 7th. How could it be over? Do not give up on this team. And, I'm going to keep saying it until they are mathematically eliminated. This pitching staff is good enough to get on a run. If they get healthy, if you got Familia at the back of the bullpen doing his thing, the offense is a little anemic right now. I mean, that's the tough thing. But I see flashes of brilliance from Conforto and from Nimmo. I really like Nimmo. He's going to be a great player someday. I've seen teams at the trade deadline make one pickup and go on incredible runs. If the Mets can just stick around with this second wild card, everybody's in it for most of the season. If they can just stick around 500, maybe make a little bit of movement this summer, at the trade deadline, you got to think that they have a few tricks up their sleeve and hopefully make something happen because I'm not ready to give up on this team yet.
They lost 2 games to Baltimore. Mark. I mean, and their pitching has been terrific. But the problem is, look at this weekend. Like Michael keeps saying, look, they've got DeGrom, Matz, and Syndergaard going against the Yankees. So they've got a chance to maybe take this series. But unless they're all going to pitch complete games, the Yankees feast on bullpens. They've got to find a way to score against Tanaka and Severino. They scored one run against the Baltimore Orioles in 18 innings, Mark. I mean, this is not. You know what? It's wrong to call the Mets offense anything because I'm not sure it exists. You don't name things that don't exist. How can you be anemic if you don't exist? And Cespedes is going to save them? Do you think that Cespedes can save this offense?
It doesn't save them, but it helps. It absolutely helps. I mean, this team, if you look at the entire season, their run differential, I mean, it's minus 33. We think that it's minus 100 because it feels like they never score, and they've lost 6 in a row, and it just doesn't look good. But, I mean, guys, the Braves and the Phillies are coming back to life. The Nationals are going to win this division. I still believe the Nationals are going to win this division. But I think that there's some wins to pick up in this division as the season goes on. And again, give them until July, and let's have this conversation that the season's over in a month and a half.
Joel Sherman had a very interesting column today online, and I wanted to throw it by you because it's not something I would consider. He said that if the Mets are out of it, they should think about trading DeGrom or Syndergaard. Now, you can make that argument back and forth, and he said that if they came to the Yankees, in order to get a DeGrom, you'd have to include Gleyber Torres and or Miguel Andujar. And I'd say, well, that's, I would trade Andujar for DeGrom, but I don't think I would trade Gleyber Torres for anybody but Mike Trout. Your thoughts? Would you give up Gleyber Torres in a DeGrom deal?
Man, that is such a tough question. My first inclination is no, because I think Gleyber Torres has a chance to be a Hall of Fame player. That's how much I believe in his ability. I will say this, though. If at the deadline the Yankees look at their team and say, we are just one pitcher away from dominating and winning a World Series and getting us back to the Canyon of Heroes, you might consider it. As crazy as it sounds, you might consider DeGrom is that type of pitcher. DeGrom's the type of pitcher that if he was made available, the Yankees would do anything it took to get him.
But he is going to be 30 this year. So you're giving away a 21-year-old player for a 30-year-old pitcher. That's
why I said my first inclination is no. But, I mean, where are the Yankees going to be at the end of July? Is everyone going to be healthy? I mean, is Tanaka still going to be, good, bad every other night? I mean, Severino is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. After that, it gets a little dicey. So, do you think that you're going to win every single game in the playoffs 8-6 or 7-5? I mean, the Yankees of mistakes from their pitching staff because their offense is unbelievable. I just don't think you're going to win like that in the playoffs.
All right, we've got some text messages for you. We're talking with Mark Teixeira's Weekly Spot. Tom from Ridgefield, Connecticut. Mark, is there a Subway Series game that you have a special memory of?
Oh, absolutely. The Luis Castillo drop ball. My favorite. I still get people come up to me, all the time saying, Tex, the coolest thing I ever saw was when you scored from first base on that pop-up to Luis Castillo. And, it's just that lesson of, hey, you never know, and always run no matter what because, crazy things happen.
What do you? I mean, I kind of remember that you did, but it did strike me because there are some players on an ordinary pop-up that A-Rod hit that they would have jogged. Were you running full bore, and did you always do that?
I was, and I always did until late in my career when I was starting to have really bad knee problems, and I would shut it down if I felt like there was no upside. You don't just run and for the sake of running when there's no upside. But in this case, I was healthy, feeling good, and it was middle of the season or maybe even like June. I had all the gas in my tank. Why not run it out?
Fans love the Subway Series. Did the players like it? Did you guys get up for this?
Yes. I really enjoyed the Subway Series, way more than any other interleague series. I think interleague has kind of run its course. but I would like to see the rivalry games keep going. I mean, you need to see the White Sox play the Cubs, and you need to see the A's play the Giants and the Yankees play the Mets. Those are all really cool series, but the Tampa-Cincinnati series, it just doesn't do a lot for me anymore. But the Subway Series was always cool for us.